Ladies and gentlemen, I am Yusril. It is the 2nd of October and welcome to the Tribble Timewarp. In today's episode we're going to be looking at the newest 5-man mission for Star Trek Online, Storming the Spire. This particular video will be running at normal difficulty, mostly because Tribble is currently so underpopulated that it was the work of several days just to get 5 people in the pug queue. So, Storming the Spire, as you can see, it's set inside the Dyson sphere that will be the primary setting for Season 8 as far as we are aware. Now, the big question, of course, is who built this, because a Dyson sphere implies that you're at least a Type 2 on the Kardashev scale, and none of the main civilizations in Star Trek Online are anything close to that, except possibly the Borg, and they don't really count. So, as you can see, we've got a region, 2 Odysseys, I think that's a Hapax, and a Scimitar on this run. I should also note that this is cold, so I have absolutely no clue what's coming here. Except, of course, that we have our new adversary group, the Voth. These guys first made their appearance in the Voyager episode Distant Origin, in which it turned out that they were basically a race of dinosaurs who had got off the planet before the asteroid hit, and they were a little bit zealous. In other words, they may be coming back and saying, hey guys, we want our planet back, no, we're not willing to share. Anyhow, first thing we're going to run into here are some Voth frigates. I imagine they'll get class names at the moment. Primary weaponry appears to be anti-proton and translated torpedoes, however their party piece is a photonic decoy. These are similar to the photonic duplicates that were given out with the Rhode Island class, except that they explode when you hit them. As you can see, I've lost the forward shield and I'm down to 62% hull. Basically, the usual method of breaking a 3-pack of frigates, popping scatter volley, torpedo spread and just blowing them all away at once, is a really bad idea against these guys. Switch to single target for Voth frigates. At least, unless you've got some way of holding your shields. Aside from that, they go down pretty quickly, standard frigate stuff. As you'd imagine, it's balanced against current ships, despite their 70,000 year head start. So, this first phase, we have to destroy the Voth troop transports. We also have to eliminate 6 groups of Voth. So we've got another frigate coming up here. As you can see, the decoys have been dealt with, and with the waves gone, we're starting our own assault. Now, this phase is timed. We are on a clock here, as you can see in the right-hand side. Essentially, there are troop transports coming in. However, there are also respawning anti-proton turrets that will be attempting to shoot them down, so those obviously have to go. The troop transports are mixed. I'm seeing both Camarag cruisers and Excelsior cruisers in this mission, which makes me think that this is going to be another joint enterprise, much like Task Force Omega. And here we have the next step up, the Voth cruiser. Now there's some sort of, I think it's a power drain, but I'm not 100% sure what's going on here. It has a buff called Aceton Mode, and they also dump Aceton drones, which have similarities to the Aceton assimilators that the Gorn have, as you might expect. Basically, energy weapons are a waste of time against these guys. Stick to kinetic stuff to get rid of them. Pop the Singularity Charge just to get some power back. Blow the repairs because I've taken something of a beating even in a Scimitar. And bring the primaries round. As I said, like most Aceton devices, your best bet here is kinetic damage, not energy of any description whatsoever. You will do 1 hit point of damage per shot, and there's usually a fairly nasty retaliation. Move in on this frigate, just blow it away on the pass, and clear these turrets. You should be able to see a troop transport. Nope, so we'll just wipe the turrets on general principle then. Right, bug-wise, the mission appears fairly solid, although I suspect it's going to need a bit of a bounce pass, a few more photonic decoys firing off there. If you're close to those when they go off, there's a very annoying white flash. It completely whites the screen out, in fact, and that actually proved a little disorientating the first few times I ran into it. Come round the main spire, looks like we're going to be engaging this cruiser next just to clear a path. And as you see, the Voth are also bringing their own transports in, so naturally you have to kill those as well. This is a problem. One of the Voth cruisers here got hooked up on the geometry. I think that may just be the AI pathing. Oh yes, and Voth cruisers do have attack pattern Delta, although that's a scramble sensors going in there, so it's a little bit confused. Alright, swing round, it's launching off anti-proton beams. Forward shields are pretty much gone, so if we can get the nose round, so just open up the turrets. There we go, forward guns are bearing, fire away, and goodbye from him. Alright, so move on to the next target. Ideally at this point I'd be paying more attention to the transports and the turrets. I can't help but think this is going to be yet another mission that really favours escorts, although some of the more agile science vessels will have a field day in the troop transport phase, if only because they'll be able to run position control with tractor repulsors, gravity wells and the like. I'm not sure how much of a place there's going to be for heavies like the Odyssey, the Scimitar and the Bortas. Accolade there, doctrinal differences. For those of you who haven't seen Distant Origins in a while, the Voth basically have the doctrine, which boils down to we are native to the Delta Quadrant and immigrants have no rights. Of course, since it turns out that they're from Earth and therefore are immigrants themselves, there was a slight case of, guys, we may have a small ideological problem here. Anyway, more on that later. I imagine we'll see how Voth doctrine and society developed after they had their run-in with Voyager and pulled their heads out of the sand. So that's one of our own troop transports moving in and beginning to deliver its troops. There's a progress bar. It's a nice concept of a mission, actually. This is simultaneously an escort and an opposed escort. Does that even make sense? Escort and transport hunt. Yeah, that's a bit better. So, anti-proton beams coming in from the side. Yep, one of the Voth cruisers doesn't like us shooting up his mate. Can't really blame him for that. However, he has just earned our forward guns. There we go. And sayonara. Bit of a bang. I'm not sure who's throwing a half-peng torpedo about at this stage. Alright, so what's on the clock? 5 minutes remaining. As you can see on the right-hand side, there is a progress bar tracking both number of Voth troops that have been delivered. They get a bit of a head start because the player side is rather late to the party. And essentially, both sides are trying to deliver troops. The more troops that you have, the more of the Spire you control. So, therefore, you want as many as your own troops across as you can, while stopping the Voth getting theirs in. The percentage control that you have determines how many marks you get at the end. At the moment, this mission rewards fleet marks. Cryptic have been explicit already. That is a placeholder reward. We don't know what it's going to be. We could very well have a new reputation track. Your guess is as good as mine. There's a dev blog coming tomorrow, I believe. The 3rd. By the time you see this, you may already have read it. Hopefully we'll start getting some background. Great, we have more decoys. As I said, shooting them up is a really bad idea. There's the whiteout again. Seriously irritating, but a good clue that, hey, dummy, you're doing it wrong. Right, so fast charge on the Singularity. We're going to get jumped there. There we go. Hopefully that'll decoy the rest of them in and set them up. Right, loop back around. Make a quick coffee while we're doing it. Forward guns back onto the frigate, and there we go. As you can see, even with the decoys up, the regular frigate, the correct one, doesn't pop the flash effect, so you can still take it down. Just, as I said earlier, don't, whatever you do, blow AoE unless you fancy some serious problems. Alright, shields are semi-decent, hulls back up to a tolerable level, next transport's heading in, and the turrets have come back up. Can we do anything about that? Yes, we can. Might need to chop the throttle a bit, just bring the nose round, because the second turret will have respawned as well. So we'll finish the first one, and then move on to the second. Attack team and cannon skills in play. Forward guns on the go. Boom, thank you. Needless to say, the transports will not, as far as I can tell, fire to defend themselves, which is a little bit awkward when they're cozying right up to turrets. Also, the drone ships are currently emulating Klingon Burrell birds of prey. That seems to be their default mode. I noticed it when the Tholians, or rather the drones, made their first appearance in an early Time Warp. I think... No, it wasn't a Time Warp. What was it? Oh yes, it was the first time we were mucking about with drone ships in general. I don't think it was a Time Warp as such, but the Burrell seems to be their default camouflage mode. Anyway, another Aceton drone out in the right field. Clear those turrets again, and we're moving on. I think that blue swirly you can see there is an energy drain from, in this case, the Voth battleship that's off to our right. That's a new enemy type. So we'll finish this cruiser quickly. Waste a few shots on drone. Like I said, 1.1.1.1.1 point even on criticals. Basically, don't bother trying to shoot those with energy weapons. I can't repeat that point enough. Let's have a look at this Voth battleship, see what it can do. So the first thing is that it has this kind of aceton shielding itself. You can see here I'm only doing 1 point of damage with all of my shots, and I'm getting some really, really nasty power drain from this battleship. Again, are we getting kinetic damage out of that? I'm not sure that we are. So really, subnucleonic beam, if you can figure out a way to strip that, is a good idea. Are we getting... Yes, we're getting kinetic damage through from the singularity effect, so you can see that's doing more damage. But really, that 80,000 hit points is turning into something more like, well, you do the maths. Multiply it by at least 1,000. So we're going to have to wait for this effect to wear off. We'll find some way to neutralise it. There we go. I think that's time neutralised and ended. No, it hasn't. We're still getting 1 point per. Big jumps of kinetic damage from the plasma torpedoes, though, so that's the way to go against those guys. It seems as though 2 torpedo tubes, rather than the usual 1, might be the way to go against the Voth. Ditto the kinetic cutting beam from the Task Force Omega reputation track. Anyhow, he's fallen over, so we're back to zonking frigates. Like I said, primarily anti-proton weapons and transphasics. There's really not a lot else to add. As you can see, we're leading the Voth just 145 to 110 at the moment, with a few seconds left on the clock. Right, 7, 6, 5. Phase changes coming up. And I'll pause the video there to give you the briefing. Moving on, we have a new 30-second pause just to catch your breath, mop up the last few frigates, read your briefing if you weren't so stupid as to close it down immediately as I did, and generally get your head back together for the next phase. In this final phase, the Voth are going to be attempting to leg it from the Spire in shuttles carrying advanced technology, which makes me think that the Voth didn't build this sphere either. As I said, this begs the question of who did it. Oh yeah, and we have the Voth Dreadnought. Now bear in mind that I'm in a Scimitar. This is pretty much the biggest ship available. Now I'm going to take the Scimitar right up against this Dreadnought, just to give you an idea of the sheer size of this thing. Because it really is absolutely huge. Getting a little bit closer. There we go, that gives you an idea of just how big this is. It's at least 5 times a Scimitar's size, probably more. There you go, that's right up against the hitbox. 310,000 hull, basically that's pretty much standard boss grade. Let me see, what else occupies that kind of margin? First thing that comes to mind, I think, has got to be the Dreadnoughts from the 20-man Starbase Fleet Keller. I've no idea what those are, but they're doing anti-proton damage, so they're nasty, whatever they are. We've also got some transphase torpedoes. I don't know what those pale blue beams were. I haven't had the time to claw back through the logs and find out exactly what was going on. However, fairly standard. The Dreadnought does go down with focus fire, as you might imagine. Although I see fire at will there, as you might expect from a boss ship handling multiple heavy cruisers. So, port side shields are buckling, hulls at 26%. 24, 21, there we go. Just gradually whittling it down. Zappy, 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 and Thaleron just to keep things going. Wait for the Thaleron pulse to charge up just to see what happens, how much damage this does. Zap, there we go. Well, it wasn't the end of the world. Decent hit, but what do you expect? The shields were still up. Focus fire with the cannons, just bring it down, and we get a very satisfying explosion. Although I have to note that just having it disappear like that right before the big boom perhaps suggests that the animation needs tightening up a little. Specifically the despawning of the corpse, as it were, before that final explosion. It needs to be delayed maybe a second or two. The shuttles themselves are pretty standard stuff. Scatter volley, mass torpedo fire, forward weapons. They fall over very satisfyingly, but you have to be quick with these guys because they will warp out after a few kilometers distance. However, this phase is also timed, so when that clock hits 0, as you can see in the right hand side, the mission will be over. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get to anything else in time. There we go. Try for the intercept anyway. Maybe. Oh, got 1 second. Nope, there we go. End of mission. So, what do we have? Ground forces are engaged. So, 57% control, 17 shuttles, 50 of 50. I assume that basically means 50 points plus 17 points for the shuttles, and that ties into our reward. I assume, as I've said, the fleet marks are just a placeholder, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is pretty much that for storming the Spire. It's in pretty good shape considering how early a version it is, and we'll see how it develops over the coming weeks. I have been Yusrul, and I'll see you next time.